Yeah. So how long have you owned your own business for, Tim?
Oh man, long time. So well, when I first when I first got out of college, I actually got involved in uh also distribution. My dad had been a manufacturer's rep for a long time, so he was selling consumer electronics, home theater equipment, distributed audio, all that kind of stuff. And he was a rep. He had started a distribution company about a year before and had no full-time employees. So, I was like, I have no idea what the hell I'm going to do. I'm a math major. Let me help you out for the summer and I'll figure out what I'm going to do. And at the end of the summer, I was like, I don't want to do anything else. I love this. This is freaking awesome. So, fortunately he agreed to have me stay on. And I worked with my dad for over 10 years. The distribution company grew at 60% a year on average. And then we sold it. And then I stayed on for a while. I ended up getting laid in 2009, early 2009. I ended up getting laid off from the company that bought us.
All right. Okay.
And then I was in residential real estate for a while. I was a real estate broker, or real estate agent, I should say. Did not like it, hated it. And that's when I transitioned into marketing, and I've been in marketing since 2013-ish.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's been a while. It took me a while to find what I really enjoy and what I'm great at in marketing.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to say it was a straight path. It took me a while to really figure that out. But I've figured that out and I stay in my lane.
Yeah. It's such a broad topic, marketing, isn't it?
It is.
Covers so many different things. So, so that's like 11, 12 years now then you've been doing marketing.
Yeah.
Yes. You can probably teach me a thing or two.
Man, I learn new things every freaking day. Every time.
It's always changing, isn't it?
Yeah. It's always changing and you're never done learning. One of the people that I really respected early on in my professional career said, the day I stop learning is the day I die. And that always resonated with me. So I'm very much a lifelong learner, whether it's professionally or personally. And I just enjoy that. So, with marketing, I'm never done. What I will say is a lot of the things that I focus on within marketing are more fundamental. So they're not changing, right? The fundamentals and disciplines don't change. The fundamentals of standing up to, the plate and hitting a major league fastball are the same as they were when you stood up to in Little League. And, the fundamentals of marketing, of sales, of running a business, man, they're the same. They don't change. The tactics,
the mediums that change, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The tactics, the marketing channels, those are constantly evolving, but the fundamentals of marketing, they don't change. They're immutable.
Yeah, we went through like a big change there the weekend almost where, was it like TikTok was banned? I don't know if you have any of your clients or presence there, but there's tens, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that rely on that for income, and then, it changes overnight. So,
yeah. Well, okay. Since we're talking about this, we might as well touch on it because it's super important. When you look at things like TikTok or any other social media channel, that's a rented marketing channel. You don't own that. As we saw with TikTok, there are influencers that if all of their business is on TikTok, they could be in serious trouble. There's nothing wrong with using rented marketing channels. We have to realize that they're rented and things can shift. And from a strategic perspective, I believe we want to leverage rented channels and drive them to channels that we own, right? So, a lot of what you're doing, right? Paid ads, another, again, rented channel, but paid ads that drive people to opt-ins that then go to your email list. Well, you own your email list. So once they're on your list, that's a medium that you have far more control over. And to me, that's what you want to do. You can use rented channels, but drive them to channels that you want.
Yeah. I love that. Owned versus rented. And I was, back in 2012, 2011, I had one golden channel, which was Google at the time. They had an algorithm update. It totally wiped me out. I was ranking really high in the search engines for certain terms, and I just got completely wiped out. And that was where I learned that lesson, where you need to have ownership of your. And the cool thing as well is you're building an asset in the business. So if you're building that list and you're building that audience over time, it's an asset that you can leverage. I've heard though, if you're building a list, you might think that you own that list sitting in a CRM somewhere, but you should actually be backing that up as well, because I have heard of certain people where they're, they've maybe done something against the T&Cs, or maybe they just, the way that they come across, they have maybe some sort of expression or political view, that account can get closed down. So
yes. Thank you for bringing that up. So with my email list, I back mine up every 3 months ish. It kind of depends on how many people you have coming onto your list, right? If you have a lot of people coming onto your list daily, weekly, you probably want to back it up more than that. Yeah. But any email marketing software worth its weight is going to have an export function, and you just go in there and export it to a CSV file, and there you go. You've got it. And so if you do, because you're absolutely right. The software itself, you are renting, but the list you own, as long as you make sure you back it up. So back it up. And if something happens to that account, you can always take that list and go to another email marketing software, and you're up and running quickly.
Yeah. So this kind of, this is obviously a revenue area for our audience here at IT Rockstars, or managed IT service providers. And I bet there's a really small fraction that are backing up their clients' email marketing platform, backing up that list. So that's a little tip right here. So to touch on MSPs, and we kind of arranged this meet. I had a podcast with you earlier in the week where it was amazing the types of questions you came to me with, and it was all very organized, where we had this nice little list. I don't have that. I've literally got 3 questions on my list for you. So we're just seeing where the conversation goes.
Awesome. I love it, man.
So one of the items here is, what do you think from an MSP's perspective are the core components of building a marketing engine?
Yeah. So here's how I think about it. And this is all that we do, is focus on helping MSPs build their engine. So when I look at the 3 core components of a marketing engine, I think of strategy first, then planning, and then leadership. You have to have all of those in alignment if you want to have an engine that's operating efficiently. So when I think of strategy like the fuel for the engine. When we go into planning, we're looking at picking the parts and assembling the engine itself. And then leadership is the mechanic. You got to have a mechanic maintaining that engine so that it operates efficiently and smoothly. And a marketing engine is not like a Honda or a Toyota. You don't just put gas in it and it just runs maintenance free, for days on end. Yeah. It is more like a race car engine, right? It is highly optimized, and you're constantly tweaking it, fine tuning it to make sure that it's running as efficiently as possible. So we have to have all 3 of those components in place. Yeah. Okay. Now, within each of those 3 components, there are 3 subcomponents that I look at. Okay. So when you look at strategy, and by the way, so there's 9 total components we look at. Any one of those is a revenue roadblock. If you have neglected that, it is going to impede your revenue at some point.
Okay.
So when we look at strategy, I look at 3 things. First is your target market. Who are your ideal clients? Who are you going to serve? Yeah. Everything from a marketing standpoint is built from that. So if you don't have a clear understanding of them, you're already off the rails.
So I have this conversation quite a lot with MSPs, and they kind of, they'll tell me, "Oh, we'll just service everyone, Tim. It doesn't really matter. We haven't really, okay, some of our clients are in this industry and some are in this industry." Some people, it's like, yeah, we'll just take anyone. How do we get around that conversation? Clients.
Yeah. Yes. So there's multiple ways around it, because you're right, Scott. Most MSPs are absolutely terrified to focus on like one specific industry vertical. And frankly, look, there are multiple ways to target, right? You don't have to necessarily target on industry vertical. I just think for MSPs, it is the simplest way to specialize and niche. So that's what I recommend. You don't have to, jump in with both feet, right? What you can do is, and here's where we typically start. Who are you currently working with? Like, don't reinvent the wheel. Look at your existing client base. Yeah. And who do you love working with? Who's profitable? And who are you getting great results and outcomes for? Ask yourself those 3 questions. I call them the 3 power questions. Ask yourself those 3 questions of your existing client base and see what comes to the surface. And then you can start to look at it. It's not uncommon for us to go through this process and they're like, "Oh man, I have like 4 clients or 5 clients, or, a majority of my clients are in 1 or 2 industry verticals." Okay, great. You love working with them. They're profitable and you're getting great outcomes for them. So if you work with more of those people, you're going to be happier. Your team's going to be happier. You're going to be making money because they're profitable, and retention is going to be high, and they're going to want to refer you because you're getting great results for them. So what we can do from there is you can target your marketing activities to one of those. You have to target your marketing activities in some way, shape, or form, because you can't, when you target broad, your message is broad and it doesn't resonate.
Yeah.
Right. You can't.
So is this the second piece in our strategy? There goes my balloons.
Yeah. Nice. Is messaging. Yes.
Okay.
Right. So we can't create a strong message until we know who we're going to target.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's impossible. And so we got to know who we're going to target. Then we can craft our message. And MSPs really struggle with their message. If you go to 5 MSP websites, four or 5 of them say basically the same flavor,
same thing,
message. And there's no differentiation. And when we don't have differentiation, what happens? People default to price because they have nothing else to compare you on.
Yeah.
And competing on price is a whole place to be. Mm-hmm. So target market, who are we going to target? Then we can craft a message, right? And
can you get that messaging one? Can you give me an example?
So I'm going to share a tip here. Okay. When we look at our messaging, we want our messaging to focus on the problems our ideal clients have and don't want, and the results they want and don't have. Okay. So the problems they have and don't want, and the results they want and don't have. They don't care about us. And a lot of MSPs talk about themselves. The clients don't give a crap.
So how do we make that? How do we make that specific to a specific target market? So that's why I'm looking for an example, like a real world example.
Yeah. Okay. So let me give you I'll try and break this down, and I'm going to give you guys an example outside of the MSP space.
Okay. Cool.
Because I think we're too close to this, right? So think about, we worked with this was a while ago. This is probably 5 or 6 years ago. I worked with a residential siding contractor. So they did home siding, roofing, and the contracting industry is very similar to the MSP space. Like, you go to 5 contractor websites, again, they say the same thing. Like, number 1 roofer in Denver. Like, who cares? And how do you even prove that? Mm-hmm. So when we started working with this client, we looked at their Google reviews and what people were saying. And there was a woman in there who said, man, the thing I loved about these guys is they treated my house like it was their own.
Okay.
That is a differentiating message right there. Because when you talk about, quality IT, response times, take your pick, like it's table stakes. Like they expect you to know what you're doing. That's not something that differentiates you.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just given, isn't it? It's like, yeah.
It's a given.
Yeah.
Right. Still, when you talk about that, it doesn't differentiate you. But think about if you needed a new roof and you went to 5 websites and 4 of them are like #1 roofing in Denver, high quality roofing and siding. And one of them said, we'll treat your home like it's our own.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel? You're like, oh my gosh, they're going to put on boots when they come into my house. They're going to clean up roofing nails. Like if you've had a roof replaced recently, roofing nails, they leave that stuff all over the place. It is in your yard and you will be picking them for years.
It's not too great where it's in the driveway when you're running barefoot through a sprinkler or something like that. The kids are, yeah.
So, when they're treating your house like it's their own, they're taking the time to do it right. They're going to leave it like they found it.
It's almost like
that becomes a differentiating message.
That example, there's almost like it's a hidden benefit. It's not like one that, would immediately stand out if I were to go to ChatGPT and ask, give me the benefits of having a roofer to replace my roof. It's like one of these hidden ones that you just wouldn't be aware of. So I look at that, like looking at the Google reviews for ideas.
Mm-hmm. And that's why one of the things we recommend when you're doing strategy work is interviewing your clients, because our message needs to be in their words, right?
Yeah.
That's another challenge MSPs have with their messaging is they tend to get very technical, right? Because they're technical people.
Yep.
But a lot of your buyers are not technical. I mean, if you're working with if your target is, CIOs or CTOs, well, that's a different story, right? But most of the time they're working directly with the business owner who's not technical. So if your messaging is at a level 10, you're losing people. You need to drop it down to a 2 or a 3 so that they can understand what you're trying to communicate. But the other thing too is most people they're not buying IT for IT's sake. They are buying IT to support a larger business objective.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so we need to understand that business objective, because that's really what they're buying. They're not buying IT. They're buying what IT can do for them.
It's just they have to get to their goal, what their goal is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we need to understand that part of it. But when you talk to clients or you look at reviews, you'll see what they care about. You'll understand the problems that you're solving and the business outcomes that you're helping them achieve. But it's, that example of, we'll leave your house, treat your house like it's our own. That is a core promise. And that's a unique selling proposition that they're putting out there. And it's a promise that they're making to clients that immediately differentiates them. And that's what we want to have happen. It's a simple message. It's easy to understand and it grabs their attention so that they then want to learn more. And that's what we need to do with our message.
Yeah. And I see that all the time on MSP websites. It's like, this is great stuff, Tim, because it's always like the ones that I always see are like, our staff are amazing, or we're really fast at fixing your problems. They're, whilst they sound great, the actually really generic. That's what everyone's saying, as you say. So it's, you're dialing into the detail, interviewing your clients, turn on the AI note taker. So you can go through AI. So I love that. So we've got target market, we've got messaging. What's the third thing in the strategy?
Then we have our services and our offers, right?
Okay.
So we need to, and I think you need to go crazy with this on the MSP side of things, but you just want to make sure that are our services structured and positioned in a way that our ideal clients actually want to buy them. So for example, a lot of MSPs price per seat. Is that how your ideal clients really want to buy? Again, that's not a question I can answer. You need to understand your ideal clients. A lot of MSPs have longer term contracts. and I understand why they do it. But do your ideal clients really want to sign a 2 or 3 year agreement? Probably not. So, those are some of the things that we want to look at when we're looking at how are we packaging our services, and are they packaged in a way, one, that helps differentiate us, but two, is a way that people want to buy. Because if it's a way that they want to buy, it's them to actually make that decision.
So that example there of, the length of the contract, and this is going to, we're having this marketing discussion about how we're packaging our services. Would you, that specific example, would you be having that like on public display? The length of the contract, would that be actually one of the service pages on the website would actually have a piece of copy that's going into detail on how long our contracts are, or the fact that we don't have contracts? Or is this when we get down to the quoting of the services?
No, you actually could do that, right? So if the way your services are structured is different, I believe you absolutely want to highlight that on your website, because that becomes a differentiator, right? So if look, I work with a few MSPs that don't have any long-term contracts. It's all month to month. And people probably think that, some MSPs may go, dude, that's freaking crazy. But guess what? They're willing to do it. They're willing to do something that a lot of other MSPs aren't. And so that's a differentiator, right? So on their website, they can talk about, hey, all of our work is month to month, right? We're not holding you hostage. We feel so confident in our ability to serve your needs. We don't need to tie you to a long-term contract.
It's getting much more difficult to offer that. Give you a good example as Microsoft.
It is. It is.
Their licensing is now structured. The risk's all on the MSP. So it's amazing that people are still offering that though. So yeah, I can see why you would have that on your website.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's on the flip side, right? The downside to a longer term contract is you may be tied into pricing. What happens if, we've been in an inflationary market for a while now.
Yeah.
If you're in a 3-year agreement and all of a sudden your pricing went up 20% or 30%, you got problems, right? So
that's the benefit of having a longer term contract. It's funny we're talking about this because I was looking at my annual mortgage statement today, before this call. And here in the UK, we don't have 30-year fixed term mortgages. It's just not a thing. It's every 2 or 5 years are oh
it's
no.
Adjusting.
So I've got a little surprise. I in a couple of years time, so I totally see the benefit of a 3 or 5 year contract for an MSP. That's how I would sell it anyway. Cool. So our services and our packaging, how we communicate that in our marketing.
Yeah.
We're going on to the planning stage now, Tim.
Yeah. Yeah. So we talked about the strategy, which is fuel. Yeah. Now it's planning, right? And I would say this is where most MSPs tend to jump to, is the planning side of it. They start picking parts or marketing tactics. Mm-hmm. I need to do paid ads, or I need to create content, or I need to have a website.
Yeah. Tactical.
You do need to do these things, but until you have the fuel, you can build an engine, but if you have no fuel, it's not going to do anything. Which is why a lot of MSPs struggle with marketing. They're like, man, I've done this marketing thing. It doesn't work, or it didn't work for me. Well, that's because things were out of alignment or they were out of sequence, right? When you do things in your marketing journey is just as important as what you do. And so if we skip the fuel and just start building the engine, we're going to have problems, right? But that's what we're doing in the planning phase. And with planning, we look at 3 things. We look at lead gen, right? How are you going to generate leads? Lead conversion, whereas what are you going to do to nurture those leads? Because not every lead that comes in is ready to buy.
Yeah.
And what's our sales process? How do we have a process to convert those leads?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then we look at retention and referrals.
Okay.
Retention referrals are super important. A lot of MSPs are generating a significant portion of their revenue through referrals.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I speak to that's how they build their business.
Exactly. But I'll tell you one thing. I ask most MSPs that come into my world, I ask, Okay, this is great. Most of your business is coming from referral. How are you doing that? Or does it just happen? The majority of the time, the answer is it just happens.
It just happens. Yeah.
And so there's opportunities there to optimize that process. And when we look at retention and referrals, that's one of the first things that we do is like, what is your referral system? Are you asking for referrals? What are you doing to help retain clients? So that's what we're looking at with planning is lead gen, lead conversion, and then retention and referrals. And so we're picking the various parts or tactics that we're going to use and we're assembling that engine.
What do you mean by retention? Like, that's like taking a customer on, and is it retention tactics? Is like, okay, you need to sell them this to make them more sticky. Is that
exactly? So it's what are we doing to retain clients? So part of the biggest thing driving retention is, one, doing great work, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Doing great work and doing what you say you're going to do. But what else are you doing within your process to help retain clients? How are you communicating with clients once they sign on and they become a client? So for example, a lot of MSPs do quarterly business reviews.
Mm-hmm.
Great practice, right? That is a retention practice, right? It is helping you stay in front of the client. It's giving you an opportunity to communicate your value and show them what you're doing, right? Because a lot of times, with the work that MSPs are doing, if you're doing a great job and their system is stable, their infrastructure is stable, and they don't have a lot of support tickets, like they don't see you.
Yeah.
They don't see what you're doing. And QBRs are a great opportunity to go, hey, this is what's been going on the back end that you don't see.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we've been doing, right?
Yeah.
And that's also an opportunity to talk about, hey, what do we see coming down the pipe? What's happening with your business? And become not just a vendor, but a strategic partner, right? You're helping them plan what their IT needs are going to be as their business evolves, right? So QBR is a perfect example of a retention tactic.
Yeah. There's whole methodologies, tool set, services around the QBR piece. How, Tim, can you give me an example of how you've helped an MSP with their retention?
Well, QBR is a great example. I'm always looking at that.
Okay.
Are you having consistent meetings? Right. What are there other things that you're doing? How are you communicating with your clients on the back end, and how regularly are you communicating with them? Okay. Oftentimes there are opportunities to communicate within the customer journey that MSPs may not be taking advantage of. Right. So, for example, you just finished a support ticket, right? That's a great opportunity to just continue the communication there, right? You could potentially ask for a referral there. You could ask for a testimonial. You could say, hey, we just solved this. What did you love about this process? What could we have done better? Right? That makes them feel good, right? It makes the client feel comfortable. Like, hey, they're asking me, hey, what went well? What didn't? Because they want to continue to support me better, right? That makes people feel good.
Yeah.
Right. Also, how are you responding, right? When there are problems? That's another thing that we need to look at with retention, right? Yeah. Are you responding quickly? Are you responding in a way that the client wants to be responded to? Mm-hmm. Support tickets are a great way to shine, and it's a great way to freaking crash and burn.
That's such a balancing act.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
It is a balancing act, and you're never done optimizing that process. But how many times have we personally, bought from somebody, and then you run into a problem and it's crickets. Like you already bought, and so they don't give a crap about you anymore. And like, how do you, that makes you feel like crap. Yeah. And it makes you feel frustrated. and so within MSP's businesses, man, that's happening daily, multiple times a day, depending on how large you are and how many support tickets you have. So looking at that process and ensuring that it's where it needs to be is a really important part of retention, So now with what I do, it's not like I'm not getting in and necessarily helping them with their support ticket process, but I'm bringing visibility to, hey, are there gaps here? And if there are gaps, let's connect you with somebody that can help you with that, right? Yeah. Do you need to outsource your help desk, or do you need to do it internally? Well, we've got resources that we can connect you with to make sure that we're addressing that. Because although it's not something that we typically think about from a marketing perspective, it impacts retention and referrals. Yeah. So we need to, from a strategic standpoint, we need to bring visibility to that so that we can address it.
Yeah. Cool. I love that. And then, so that's the planning.
Yeah.
Then we've got leadership. And this, my understanding, this is more tactical, you said. Or is that?
Well, I wouldn't say it's more tactical.
It's just the fuel the engine.
You've got to think of the mechanic is overseeing the engine, right? They're making sure the engine's running effectively.
Okay.
So there are three parts to leadership. There are metrics, there's implementation and execution, and then there's optimization. So as a marketing leader, you need to oversee those three things. It doesn't mean that you need to be doing every part of that, but you need to be overseeing it. So metrics, and MSPs appreciate the metric side of it because they're data-driven people, right? We have to identify what metrics we're going to track with our marketing. Otherwise, we have no idea what the hell's working and what's not. And
what would you say are crucial, like KPIs, metrics?
Great question. So
let's be looking at
there, and we can go down. You can go down, a rabbit hole here with metrics because there are so many metrics with marketing.
Yeah, there are.
But here's the top three, in my opinion. No matter what you're doing from a marketing standpoint, top three leads. How many leads are you generating? Lead source. Where are the leads coming from?
Yes,
we understand where they're coming from. We know what activities are actually driving leads. And then new clients. When we know how many leads we're generating and how many new clients we got, that tells us what our conversion is like. Really powerful. So those three metrics are the easiest place to start. If you're not tracking any metrics, start tracking those metrics for your business as a whole.
Okay.
Right? Now, you can track those metrics granularly by campaign or marketing activity, right? So like we're doing Facebook ads. How many leads is it generating? How many of those are converting to clients, right? You can get that granular, but a lot of MSPs aren't even tracking any metrics. So, we need to walk before we run. Start with those three, and then you can start to expand from there. And from there, I think lifetime value of a client is very important.
It is.
And I think your cost to acquire a client is important. With lifetime value, MSPs tend to have very high lifetime value because they're expensive.
Most of them aren't aware of what the LTV is. I was having this conversation yesterday. I'm like, I don't want to tell you what the lifetime value of your client is. I want you to go and figure that out by yourself. But when you realize that number, the whole marketing game completely changes. And
it's, as you touch on, it's very important because, and by the way, lifetime value, we need to understand. I like to look at gross profit, not top line revenue. Some people get top line revenue. I like to look at gross profit because that's actually what's coming back into the business.
Okay.
So I like to look at gross profit for the lifetime you're retaining a client. So if, let's just take, this is low, but let's just say your average retention is 1 year and your gross profit is $3,000 a month. That's $36,000 lifetime value of a client. That's low, but we're just using that for simplicity's sake. For most MSPs, it's not uncommon to have 3, 4, 5+ year retention or more.
Much more. Yes.
So we need to look at what our average retention is, what our average gross profit is per month. That gives us the lifetime value. Because a lot of MSPs complain about, hey, the cost per lead is high or the cost to acquire a client is high. Well, your lifetime value is freaking high. So, you may have to spend more than, your gross profit for the first month or the first 2 months or the first 3 months to acquire a client. But guess what? If you know the numbers, that's okay.
Exactly. It opens up a whole new reality. But I always feel biased, like going and telling them, because like I'm like the marketing person that's like, you spend more on your marketing. They're like, well, why? Also, look at lifetime value of your client. It's just crazy. But once you understand that number, the whole cost per lead, you can then start you can almost start burning money because it's so crazy. Yeah. The lifetime value of an MSP client.
So metrics are super important, but that's where I'd start. And you and I could probably talk about metrics on an episode by itself.
We'll get into this now. So, okay, let's take in this example, the very conservative example where $36,000 is going to be the top line revenue. How much should I be paying to acquire that type of customer?
Depends on what your threshold is, right? For risk. But you want to make sure that you are profitable, right? And so I always like to look at and shoot for 5 to 10x returns.
Okay.
Right? You can't always get that, and it depends on the marketing channel. But if you take that as a round number itself, 5 to 10x, can I get 5 to 10x? Let's shoot for that. But Scott, the reality is, if you're getting a 2x return, why would you stop doing it?
Yeah.
Right. If for every dollar I put in, I'm getting 2 back, I'm not going to stop doing that. I just want to make sure that I'm getting a return.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So, I think that the lesson here for me, or sounding to the audience, is like, go and work out that lifetime value of the client and then come and have a conversation with Tim and myself.
Yeah. And look at it, because it also depends on how profitable you are, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Some MSPs are operating at higher levels of profit. And if you have a higher level of profit, you can afford to spend more on the front end.
Yeah.
Right. But I think the important takeaway here is, as an MSP, if you understand the lifetime value of a client, you're not going to freak out if you have to spend the first 2 to 3 months of profit for a client to acquire that client.
And you can then build up an amazing referral program as well. I have some really cool incentive offers for referrals.
Yep.
So
which goes to we could talk about this for a while. We need to think long term. We can't think short term with our marketing. If we think short term, we try stuff and then we give up too early and we're like, it never worked. We have to think long term. Have to. It's absolutely essential. And so if you think longer term and you're like, yeah, well, okay, so my first 3 months of profit I gave away, but I got 5 years of retention.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Who cares?
And and I'll tell you who has these numbers figured out. A lot of these bigger sort of private equity firms, they're going around buying MSPs and buying their clients. So it's like they have these numbers down to a T. So that's who you're up against. They have that reality on their Excel spreadsheet. And you need to have that same reality to compete in the space now. Speak to a Canadian MSP yesterday, and he's telling me that a number of his clients are being acquired from PE equity firms, private equity firms, but also MSPs, local area. They're just going around acquiring the MSPs, and they're because they have this understanding of the lifetime value of a client and how much they're prepared to pay to get that that client. Is essential now. All right, covered all 3 areas now, Tim. that correct?
Yeah, we talked about metrics, but then we have implementation and execution and optimization.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
with implementation and execution, the really important thing is like, you can't do it all yourself. So you're going to have to find people to help implement and execute. And with marketing, it is too broad. So one of the big mistakes I see MSPs making is they hire internally and they expect that person to be a unicorn. You know, you're going to do my paid ads. You're going to do SEO. You're going to do email marketing. You're going to do social. Like, they may be able to do some of that, but
3 or 4 full-time jobs right there.
Yeah. And they're not going to be great at it. So,
for all of these.
Yeah. They're not going to be great at it. And so you need to make sure that we're hiring the right people to implement and execute. The other thing too, is from a leadership standpoint, you know, most MSPs, marketing is not their thing, and that's okay. You can still lead your marketing efforts as the owner, but you have to have support and guidance there from somebody who can help advise you so that you're leveling up your marketing leadership skills and you avoid some of these common missteps, because these missteps can be expensive. Like if you hire an internal person and you're not leveraging them, you know, you're blowing 50 to 70 grand a year. Like
how effective is it? Yeah.
Yeah. You know, and then with optimization, it's just, we're never done optimizing. Once you put a plan in place, it's not like you're done. You're constantly testing and tweaking your marketing, because a lot of marketing doesn't work.
Yeah.
Most marketers won't say that, but it's true. What we're doing is we're taking everything that we have, and based on our plan and past experience, we're putting things out there and we're testing it. And as we get data back, we optimize. The thing is, and you know this, Scott, from paid ads, all the paid ads that don't work help you get to the ad that works, and the ad that works makes it all worth it. All worth it.
Yeah.
Because your return on that one ad just kills it. And it's no different than any other marketing channel. So that's what we're doing with optimization. It's just constantly fine tuning what's working, what's not, and just pulling different levers to get that engine running as optimally as possible.
Cool. Love it. And yeah, that's so you're spot on there with testing what's working. And, you know, from our own business, we've been down this route because things change over time. We go back to the algorithm changes or platforms that just get wiped out. But testing is crucial, especially when the algorithms are changing so quickly. So if I go back 5 or 6 years now from today, like I was doing videos on LinkedIn, they were working amazingly well. Same way like Facebook Lives. Now everybody's doing them. And guess what? They don't really work anymore because everyone's doing them. So it's like, you know, optimization is crucial. Awesome. So all of these 3 sort of high level areas that we've discussed, where do you see most MSPs going wrong? Yeah,
I touched on this earlier. The biggest mistake is jumping right to the tactics without spending time on strategy. And I know why MSPs are not alone in this boat. Like, tactics are very tangible, right? They're much easier to understand. Oh, I'm putting an ad out on Facebook, or I'm putting a post out on social. Very tangible. Strategy tends to be a little bit more esoteric and kind of up in the clouds. And it can take time, right? It takes time to work through that. Again, going back to short-term versus long-term thinking. But when we focus on strategy first, what we're doing is we're taking time now so that we can move faster later. Okay. Because when you jump into tactics immediately without having the proper fuel for the engine, you feel like you're moving faster, but guess what? You freaking hit a wall and you stop. And then you got to figure it out. So you're really not further down the road. You just wasted time and money. And then you got to go back to doing the strategy. So there are a number of mistakes I see MSPs make with marketing, but that, in my opinion, with what I do, is the biggest mistake.
I love that. And I'll touch on this. Most MSPs that you'll speak to, if they're like really proud of what they offer, they'll say that they have, documentation. So their clients' infrastructures are documented. Should an MSP be documenting their marketing strategy?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, they absolutely should.
Okay.
Cause again, this goes back to like tracking. Like if you're throwing stuff up against a wall, hoping it sticks, like, hope is not a marketing strategy. So we need to have within planning, and this tends to resonate pretty well with a lot of MSPs, especially those that are familiar with, the entrepreneurial operating system.
Mm-hmm.
With marketing planning, I look at it in 90-day sprints.
Okay. Like every quarter. Yeah.
Yeah. Every quarter, because, the pandemic's a perfect example, Scott. If you had a year-long marketing plan in February, March, when the pandemic started, man, you might as well have stuck that into a drawer or threw it into a fire. Like everything went out the window. Longer marketing plans become very complex, and complexity is in the way of implementation.
Yeah.
And no marketing plan is the same after the first 90 days. So if it's not the same, why take right? You want to know where your longer term goals are and objectives are, but focus on what do we need to focus on in the next 90 days that's going to help us get one step closer.
Yeah.
So I love 90-day plans because it keeps things simple. You outline what your priorities are and you focus on those priorities. And when you know what your priorities are, it helps you eliminate the distraction, because there's so much distraction in marketing. Today, tomorrow, you're going to have something come across your feed going, you got to do this. You got to do that.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a plan with your priorities in place, it's very easy to be like a squirrel chasing a nut and just go down that path.
There's also like, there's, all these things change in marketing, but there's also from an MSP's perspective, all of these technologies are changing constantly, especially the age of AI, Microsoft Copilot, and what's coming up of the woodwork from Microsoft. What 10 apps have Microsoft released this month that our clients are clicking on? So, so I totally love that, 90-day approach. All right. Final sort of question here then, Tim. Quick win marketing opportunities for MSPs. What are some common ones that you're aware of?
Yeah. So, there's plenty of them.
Okay.
One of the first places I look at is what's already working.
Yeah.
Like why go into a new channel if you haven't fully optimized what's already working? So we touched on this earlier, Scott. A lot of MSPs generating most of their business from referral. If you do not have a referral system in place where you're like, how are we going to ask? When are we going to ask? Mm-hmm. That's low hanging fruit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So look at that.
Do more of what's already working. Yeah.
Do more of what's already working and do it better. Optimize it. Fill gaps that you have. That's the first place that we look. Another one that's related to that is what used to work that you stopped doing.
Yeah.
Right. So,
I can say it's difficult to figure out though.
It can be. A lot of people don't think about it, but I used to do a lot of in-person speaking before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And I stopped. Right. It worked. That's a perfect example. Like, should I start doing that again? Right. Those are opportunities for us to look at there. The other area where there are some opportunities specifically in the MSP space is with co-op and MDF funds.
Oh yeah. I've heard of it.
A lot of MSPs have marketing development funds or co-op funds from their vendors that they're not taking advantage of, or they may not be fully aware of it.
Yeah, they're just not aware of it at all. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's another place to look at that's really common in the MSP space, where it's like, man, you may have money that's just sitting out there that you can use towards your marketing that doesn't need to come out of your pocket.
It's not getting spent. Yeah. Yeah. That is such a big one that even I miss this quite often, is like asking the MSP, is okay, give me a list of your vendors. Which ones have a, marketing, it's a marketing development fund, MDF, isn't it?
Yes. Marketing development funds is typically what they call it. MDF or COA.
Okay.
And asking your vendors about that, that is low hanging fruit because that's money that you can spend on your marketing efforts that is not going to come out of your pocket.
I love that. Yeah. Okay. These are great tips. And how can people reach out to you? How can we get in contact with you if we want to hear more?
Yeah, cool. I appreciate that. 2 ways. Go to our website, rialtomarketing.com. So that's RIALTO marketing.com. The other tool that I've got that some of your MSPs might want to take advantage of is that revenueroadblockscorecard.com.
Okay.
Revenueroadblockscorecard.com. So if they go there, we touched on 9 key elements of the marketing engine. Mm-hmm. If they want to know which of those are slowing down their growth, that's where they can go to do it.
Oh, this is like
fill in your information. Yep. You'll get a customized report. So it's super simple, less than 5 minutes. So take advantage of that.
You have to put that URL in the chat for me. We'll put that in the show notes.
Cool.
Okay. Awesome. Do we want to cover anything else for the audience? We've covered like a lot in the last 50 minutes here. But,
we covered a lot. The only thing I would say is if this resonated with you, just listen to it multiple times because you won't digest everything that we covered, but we did cover a lot of ground. And, if you want to build a consistent, repeatable business, you have to have a marketing engine. And we covered all the main